I mean, the underlying story here is a White House and a Department of Defense that have no idea what they're doing. You have children. You have, people who just were like MAGA trolls online, people who just aren't up for the job when you have a talk show host running the Department of Defense.
In late October 2025, I started writing a book. The central argument was this: the United States was executing a coordinated multi-front strategy to build hemispheric dominance over global energy supply, neutralize China's decade-long attack on dollar reserve currency status, and transition away from a Middle East-dependent global order. I mapped the architecture across Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, Europe, and the Western Hemisphere. I named the doctrine Donroe Doctrine 2.0. I wasn't working from classified intelligence. I was working from open sources, market data, and a framework for reading what's actually happening underneath what's being said publicly. Then, in January of 2026, while I was still writing, the United States government publicly released a strategic doctrine for hemispheric dominance. They called it the Donroe Doctrine. They named it independently. That was confirmation number one. Then last week, Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat Senate Foreign Relations Committee, one of the most vocal critics of the Iran war, walked out of a classified briefing with the Trump administration's own military briefers. He came out calling the strategy incoherent. He came out saying there's no plan. He came out convinced he had just witnessed strategic confusion at the highest level.
I have no idea why we entered this war.
He accidentally confirmed the operational mechanics of the exact thesis I've been building since October. That was confirmation number two. Two independent sources, two completely different directions, the same architecture. Let me show you exactly what Murphy revealed and why his criticisms confirm the strategy rather than expose its failures. Before we get into Murphy's briefing, you need to understand the strategic framework, because without it, his revelations look like random facts. With it, they form a complete picture. The core argument is this: the United States identified that China's Belt and Road Initiative, combined with BRICS financial architecture, was a coordinated long-term attack on dollar reserve currency dominance. Not a military attack, an economic one, slow, methodical, and running for a decade before most analysts took it seriously. The response was building an alternative, a Western Hemisphere energy and financial architecture that makes the dollar indispensable to global trade regardless of what happens in the Middle East. Venezuela, Canada, Guyana, U.S. domestic production, Gulf of Mexico, American LNG flowing to European terminals that were built specifically to escape Russian dependency. When that architecture is complete, the U.S. doesn't need the Middle East to be stable. It needs it to be just unstable enough that every serious energy importer on the planet wants a backup relationship with Washington. The Donroe Doctrine is the public face of that strategy. Hemispheric dominance. Western Hemisphere first. Chinese influence removed from the Americas entirely. I was documenting that architecture in detail before it had an official name. When the government released the Donroe Doctrine publicly, it wasn't news to this framework. It was a confirmation that the thesis was tracking the real strategy, not a constructed one. Now here's why Murphy's briefing is the second confirmation and why it's even more valuable than the first. Murphy revealed three things. Number one, briefers confirmed that destroying Iran's nuclear weapons program is not a stated war goal.
It doesn't actually seem like we care too much who runs the country. Our intelligence services acknowledge that it'll be hardliners that will still be committed to provocation in the region and rebuilding a missile program and rebuilding a nuclear program.
The entire public justification for this war has been nuclear threat framing. Trump has said it repeatedly. Every mainstream news outlet has repeated it as the primary rationale. But inside a classified briefing to the Senate committee legally entitled to oversight, the administration's own briefers confirmed the nuclear program is not actually the objective. Number two, regime change is not a stated war goal either.
Though Donald Trump has talked about regime change, and certainly Israel is talking about regime change, and of course this has to be a regime change operation because they specifically targeted the Ayatollah and many people surrounding him, we are not willing, that the Trump administration is not willing, based upon the comments that they have made to us, to support the Iranian people in their effort to depose this regime and start a transition to a democracy.
So the two things the public was told this war was about, stopping the bomb and changing the regime, are both conformed as not the actual operational goals by the people running the operation themselves. Number 3, when Murphy asks what happens when you stop bombing in Iran, the briefers had no coherent answer. Their answer was essentially more bombing. Murphy called this endless war. He called it incompetent planning. He walked out of that briefing convinced he had witnessed strategic confusion at the highest level of the U.S. government.
The war, this is just what happens when you have, a senile old man surrounded by a bunch of incompetent sycophants.
He was looking at the right information. He was using the wrong framework. Murphy is analyzing the Iran war through one lens. How do you fix Iran? How do you resolve the conflict? How do you define victory and get out cleanly? When you use that lens, the answer he got makes no sense. No nuclear goal, no regime change, no exit strategy. It looks like chaos. There's a different lens. And when you apply it, every single thing Murphy describes as incoherence becomes immediately coherent. The lens is this: what configuration of Iran produces maximum sustained U.S. strategic leverage? Not a destroyed Iran, not a friendly Iran, a specifically degraded Iran, threatening enough to matter but weak enough to be dependent. Here's what that configuration looks like. No regime change means the IRGC survives in some governing form. A hardline government with no air force, no navy, depleted missiles, damaged oil infrastructure, and no pathway to reconstruction, financing without U.S. approval. That Iran needs Washington for its economic survival, while simultaneously remaining threatening enough to keep one thing permanently elevated: Hormuz uncertainty. The insurance market's premium permanent question mark over every barrel of oil transiting that strait. The U.S. doesn't need Hormuz to be closed. It just needs it to be unreliable enough that every serious energy importer wants a backup relationship with the supply architecture being built in the Western Hemisphere, not a nuclear dimension. And this is the part Murphy confirmed without understanding what he was confirming. The nuclear program is not the goal, because a fully destroyed nuclear program removes the long-term uncertainty. What you need is the theological constraint gone, which happened when Ali died on March 1st. While the IRGC survives with the capability and now the motivation to eventually pursue the bomb, that permanent nuclear ambiguity keeps the Hormuz uncertainty premium elevated indefinitely. A dead supreme leader, but live IRGC with no nukes yet, but no theological barrier to nukes either. Murphy sees that as a planning failure. The framework reads it as the intended configuration, and the more bombing answer on Hormuz, that's not an exit plan, that's the maintenance mechanism. Periodic strikes to prevent Iranian military reconstitution is a coherent operational doctrine if permanent degradation, not resolution, is the actual goal. Here's what I want you to take from this video. Murphy had access to classified information that most analysts will never see. He sat in that room with people running this operation. He heard the real goals directly from the source, and he still walked out with the wrong conclusion, not because he's unintelligent, but because he was using the wrong analytical framework. The information was right in front of him. The framework determines what you see in it. That's the exact argument of everything I'm building on this channel and documenting in this book series. The headlines are available to everyone. The data is public. Classified briefings eventually leak. What's genuinely scarce is the framework that lets you read what actually is happening underneath what is being said. Murphy confirmed that nuclear destruction is not the goal, which means the nuclear justification was pretextual. Murphy confirmed that regime change is not the goal, which means controlled instability is the preferred outcome. Murphy confirmed there's no clean answer on Hormuz, which means permanent uncertainty is the desired steady state. That's 3 confirmations from a political opponent with classified access who thought he was criticizing the plan. The Donroe Doctrine confirmed the hemispheric architecture that I named in October 2025. Senator's classified briefing confirm the operational mechanics of why Iran fits into that architecture. Two independent confirmations in one framework, and the picture goes significantly deeper. The full architecture. That's what Book 2 of the Alchemical Investor series is documenting in real time as this situation develops. If you read Book 1, you already have the inner framework. Book 2 is the outer world application of everything in it. It's being written as these events unfold. Go back and watch the first two videos on this channel. This video is the third piece of a picture being built deliberately, and the picture is getting clearer every week. So subscribe, because the next confirmation is already in the data, and you're going to want to see it before it becomes obvious to everyone else.